Can they hear that down there?
Hear what?
The fan. All right, they didn't hear the last time.
It's as loud as usual.
Okay. Welcome to our humble abode in my house.
This is not.
Ghost in my house?
I don't think so.
I don't remember you paying the rent here.
Okay.
Or the mortgage that I own.
Or the mortgage that you. Okay.
Yeah. You got any trees outside?
Okay. So
with the devil's lettuce.
Haha.
We're gonna be power. He doesn't like my jokes at all. They're literally funny to everybody else. Right.
All right. So we're gonna be power ranking the MSI the teams. I think we're gonna start with the major regions, obviously, because I did not get to watch too many of the wildcard regions. There was not really a lot of options for some of them.
Oh, there was Oceania.
Oceania, fair enough. There were some of them
options.
Yeah, but there a lot of the regions just didn't have either English broadcasting or a lot of stuff, and I'm not too into listening to Spanish guys yell. So
I am.
for the most part,
Monster de la Nido Catado Pentakill.
You're okay.
That's all they say. They're basically rap gods.
Okay, so what's going to be going on? We're going to rank the top 5 again. We're going to be including Flash Wolves, Cloud9. Oh, wait. Cloud9 didn't make it, did they?
Oh, he's just throwing shade right now.
Team Liquid, G2, Invictus Gaming, and SKT.
Piglet's job is over. God, I love when I validate myself by seeing Piglet fail.
Okay, so...
Okay.
I think we should... Yeah,
let's start. One team that I think might make it... We're gonna be dead. Power bomb! No? Okay. One team that I think might make it over Flash Wolves if they actually manage to overcome the obstacles after they get out of the group stage in the play-ins is Fangwu Buffalo. They have their top laner Zeros from last year. Their mid laner actually wasn't that bad. Their top laner Zeros had the most solo kills, or it was their mid laner. They had like 31 solo kills out of just one player. I think like that type of style they were playing last year is only just gotten better. But we're gonna have to see Zeros and the rest of his team play. But I think Zeros is a player to watch out for too on Fangwu Buffalo, and probably can do some hard damage to a certain team if they're not really prepared for him. And thank you, Mr. Buffalo, for G2 getting out of groups last year. But other than them, you have Flash Wolves is my number 5 pick. I think they're still fairly good from what I've actually got a chance to see out of the LMS. Because I wasn't really watching it for an English broadcast. I was just seeing their play. Flash Wolves still look pretty decently, but they are not the same caliber team they were last year. They're lacking the star players. That's what they're lacking. But they have Rather, Betty, Hanabi. I think that trio alone will be good enough for them.
I actually do want to point out that I think that Rather, if we compare last season, I do think Rather actually played better than Maple did. So I do think, in my opinion, that is an upgrade. But I don't know if everybody's going to agree with that.
Hanabi's, I think, a pretty decent top laner. He played decent last MSI too. So
it's
Betty's
all around
still pretty good for what it is.
I mean, again, I still think this team is pretty much not upgraded the essential parts. Their mid laner wasn't weak last year, which I do think was the most essential choice. Like that was probably the choice you might want to keep. They lost their what I would say is their best player in Sword Art.
Oh, he's been the shot caller for years on the team.
So I'd like to see what they have to bring to the table because again, I'm not going to pretend that I watched every single one of their games. I did only get to watch a few. I still do think that I think they do have a star. I think that Rather might be able to take that position, but for the most part, I'm going to have to see I have to see what it comes down to in terms of just what Betty's able to bring to the table, because for the past few years, it's just not been enough. I think that he does well in terms of just national performances, but when it comes to the international stage,
LMS,
I would disagree with that. That's a terrible comparison.
Like Wild Turtle, kind of.
Wild Turtle was good on the international stage.
Oh, yeah. All those great games he played.
Well, let's just be real. I just think that Betty, again, it doesn't translate well into the international stage because I don't think it's the same caliber. If you want it, their goal should not continually be to pick up good enough to players to win Taiwan, because that's just not something they should be shooting for. They're going to make
Taiwan ever since spring 2016. Mm-hmm. They've not lost since. They've literally won that's 2 splits a year, so that's 2, 4, 6. They won 8 splits.
That was really good math. I'm actually.
They won 8 splits in 4 years.
I'm so proud of you.
That means, and they haven't made it out of groups since 2015. So I feel like because I always want to go for a trio of players that are really good, that can have some early game aggression, where the lanes can soak up a lot of pressure. But once their better players meet better players than what they have, it just doesn't collide. It's like when Godzilla and Godzilla would fight each other. It's like, well, you're not really gonna have a winner. You're gonna have just a stalemate. And I feel like their players are good enough to be at stalemates and not actually get better than the competition because they don't have good competition actually in their own league. Because every finals they've ever been in has pretty much been a 3-0. They're not getting challenged in their own region really, and when they come to international, they get destroyed because it's not really the same type of caliber. Also, I think Flash Wolves are primarily a best of one team from what I've always seen out of them ever since I've seen them. They can primarily beat you in best of ones, but in best of fives, it looks horrible out of them.
I mean, again, I don't know if that translates this well into this year, but for the most part, I think that if we're gonna want to see this this team succeed, I really do think it's gonna have to come off the back of some swap. Like again, I could be proven wrong. Betty could have played well in the games that I didn't watch in the LMS. I
watched the finals and a few of their semifinal games.
It's just I didn't watch it very large, but from the games I've seen, it's not been drastic improvements, if any at all.
He's playing like utility, kinda.
Yeah, so again, we'll see what happens. I don't think they're gonna make it. They're gonna make it past the play-in stages, but I don't think they're gonna make it out of group stages.
They might not even beat Funfu Buffalo. That's how bad it might be.
I don't know about that, but all right. So
that's my number 5 pick. That's your number 5 pick too.
I guess so.
Gosh, man, the Wolves got you. Arr.
Okay, so number 4. I think that the most deserving team
existed for so long.
I think Team Liquid's probably gonna take that spot. I don't like. It was a big toss-up because I did actually think at the beginning of the year they looked pretty solid. They had a slower starting, but they knew how to close out games when they got it going, and I don't think that's the case anymore. I do think they can close out games for the most part, but their slow start has not improved in the slightest. That was their biggest detriment at the beginning of the season, and that's kind of the meta of the game right now. You need to play faster paced, you need to do all this stuff if you want to keep up with the teams around you, and that's not something we're really seeing from Team Liquid. I think they have strong laners. I think that if they can get the game stalled out, their team fight is pretty great. And I think they can do well against a lot of the teams. But for the most part, you can't continually hope that you could stall out. That's the game Splice tried to play.
And we saw that worked out.
Didn't work. Like, trying to forcibly always get the game to go to late game is not a strategy. That is more... That's like... I would say that was more so... Like, again, if you're good enough, it worked out for Season 5 SKT, but they get... Not only is the game in a completely different state at that point, they're not as good as they were, so that's also a thing. You have to be good enough to pull off these types of things. You have to be able to suffocate lanes if you want to force the game out to late game. So all around, I don't think Team Liquid is going to do extremely well. I still think they have the players to pull out a few wins because, again, they're not outclassed individually. Like, the individual-wise, I think that a lot of their players can compete, but that's not the problem here. I think their play style is just kind of, like... They are
tuned for the
it's more so not tuned for the international stage. It can work well in NA because I don't think there's a lot of teams that punish, but we're not going to see
literally 2 other teams try to punish them that way, and they're the other 2 top teams. So you're factoring that's 2 other teams, and they're the other third one. So that means, okay, so in math terms, that's 7 other teams in the league aren't able to actually punish that. So
okay, now I want you to redo that math again because real quick, 2 other teams didn't do it. Now, I want you to include Team Liquid in that group.
That's why I said the third team. They're the third team.
They're the third team that can challenge Team Liquid as Team Liquid?
See, I wasn't good at math these days.
Okay, so...
it's hard because their players aren't... I'm just going to say this. I think if they have a miracle run like CLG did, they could possibly get second.
Well, I just don't think they can get second. I think...
But they have the better caliber players than CLG did back then.
They do, but again, I think... I agree with that to an extent.
They would have to kind of seeing them overperform. It's not because they're overperforming. They're just good players.
I think the caliber of player again. RNG is not as good as either of the 2 top teams that I think of, and I don't even know if they're better than the G2 of this year. So I think that the caliber of the teams, like inside of the game itself, are a little bit better right now. So I don't think that we're gonna see that miracle run. It could possibly happen, but again, CLG was not only extremely smart macro wise. Like, at that point in time, they never were in that season again. It just for that specific tournament, they were so smart. But for the most part, it's not only that they were genuinely pushing the tempo constantly early game, and that's how you try and take the game over. Like even when they lost the games, like early on, they knew how to stall out the games too. And that's like they have multiple strategies. They're not relying on one. That's why CLG was able to pull it off that year. CLG, I mean Team Liquid, I mean that CLG is literally one of the best teams. Just that specific MSI CLG.
But the fact of the matter is, like, this TL, if they did that, it wouldn't necessarily be the back off of an overperformance by them. Because if they didn't overperform, this is them just playing good.
Possibly, but again, I don't think they're that good. I think they're...
Because you have to factor in, these guys are good enough in general, except for, like, maybe 2 players. Like,
Impact and Xmithie are in completely outclassed by every single one of the major. Even, like, it's kind of embarrassing, but for the most part, I think that they are outclassed in 2 major roles.
Let me see where we can kind of break it down for them. Their slow macro play style, they usually have late game scaling comps. That doesn't really work out too much. I mean, this is all pre-knowledge. We don't know if they change their strats up before the tournament either.
I don't expect it.
It's like Jensen can hold off Rookie. He's probably getting clapped by Faker. You know, who else is that? He can hold off Caps, but you know, holding off a player is not the same thing as beating them and pushing a lead. You know, I do believe Jensen, from what he showed at other international events, can get a lead and translate it very well. Though the better competition now, these guys have all improved since then. He's improved too, but you have to throw that same kind of wrench in there as well. Like, well, if Jensen improved, then Rookie obviously got better too, because this is how life works in general. I think that they don't really have like a defined style. It's either going to play 1-3-1 or because Impact is not a good split pusher at all.
You mean they're forced into a situation where they always have to get... Like, the reason they don't scale is because, again, the way to play the mid game is to 1-3-1, and they don't have a good split pusher. That's correct. You're 100% right on that.
I don't think he's good enough to do it.
He's not good enough, and that's the reason why this team suffers is because the solo lane in the top lane is just not strong enough outside of a team fight to be able to be helpful enough.
Like you gotta imagine whatever Broken Blade did to him is gonna be way worse against the Shy, Wonder, who else is there? Khan. So, and these guys are way better than Broken Blade. So if they get a lead in top lane, they're going to snowball it all into the map because they pair up better with their junglers. Like, Xmithie gives a lot of his ganks to Impact actually in general. He doesn't really gank for Jensen or Core JJ a lot anyway. So maybe Xmithie helping him could be a bit better, but you have to factor in the other guy's team is going to do the exact same thing too. So that strategy is also countered. It's just like, it's going to be off the back of Core JJ and Jensen just literally outplaying people probably.
Okay.
I mean, we know they can, but is that good enough? You know,
is what good enough?
Core JJ and Jensen is Core JJ, Doublelift, and Jensen good enough to carry the team to a top 4 finish?
Well, I mean, I think they could. I think top 4 is reasonable and expected.
I think that if they match up against G2, they're probably going like 1-1.
I think that's a good matchup for them because the other 2 teams are extremely...
They're literally losing 2-0.
Like, again, they're just completely outclassed. And, like, at the very least, against G2, they win in the bot lane.
And they win... They have a matching mid. They have matching mids.
I don't know about matching. I would still say G2 probably edges out there.
Junglers...
I think it's pretty one-sided for G2.
I think that's not looking good still.
Well, the thing about it is, at the very least, they win one lane. That's not possible for either... I think that they might do well against the IG lane at the very least, but for the most part, they get smashed.
I think they could. I wouldn't be surprised if they beat IG once. I think I would be surprised. I would be surprised if they beat SKT. That would be surprising.
That would be very surprising to me.
But if SKT do have a bad draft, because SKT, a lot of people like to give them just so much credit. People haven't watched the LCK split. They draft. They're fairly scaling comps too, but they also like to draft a few good early game champions in that as well to help them with their what's the word I'm looking for? Their mid game. Because sometimes a lot of the games I've watched from them, even just looking back at the games, a lot of the games were Clown Fiestas. A lot of the stuff against Afrika was Clown Fiestas. They played Clown Fiestas against KT Rolster. They're not like perfect like they were back in the day, but I think like in this type of environment, TL could thrive against that because I feel like certain teams are gonna drastically not draft properly for weaker teams, and then that's going to give them a punishing way to lose. But I do feel like if they're going to win, TL's my 4th pick. Jensen and Core JJ are going to be carrying them really hard.
All right.
If Jensen gets clapped, if Jensen loses to Faker, good luck Core JJ, because that's going to, I don't know how it's going to work against Mata.
All right, so I think that's pretty much decided on Team Liquid. Pick number
what
3.
if Steve pays IG for the win?
Pick number 3 is gonna be G2. I think that G2 is one of the better teams Europe has produced for a little bit.
Now, what do you think about people saying that they could actually win the whole thing?
I don't think they're that good. Again, their macro's absolutely horrible. I still think people overlook that just based off of their actual individual play.
They just watched the finals and only saw that.
It's not just that. Like, they outclassed a lot of the players in Europe, and I do agree that's tremendously good, and they have the caliber of players in every role besides bot to really challenge all of the teams.
It's actually mostly just ADC.
Again, even
Mickey,
the support.
well, we don't. He said he might not play, so you're going with the assumption that G Perks and Promise Q. Okay, they have a weak bot lane.
So I mean, again, I agree. Mickey X is not that weak, but for the most part, the reason that, like, again, I think they're strong enough individual wise to compete with a lot of the teams. They can push the tempo quite a bit fast, but that's pretty much what every single one of the teams besides Team Liquid is going to be attempting to do. Like, I think the big problem if they want to win this tournament is going to be, like, not just pushing the tempo, because you can get off a few ganks, but they don't. And they know how to close out a game with just pure, like, gold leads, but I don't think they're able to consistently, like, if they're not extremely ahead in gold, I don't think they're good at closing out. Because the rotations around the map have always been one of the weakest points of their thing. I think their Baron calls are probably their strongest point. They do actually often get those, but for the most part...
Their Baron, warding around the Baron pit's one of their strongest things.
Yeah, but for the most part, their rotations are what kind of keeps them... They don't... When they get a lead in one lane, they don't transition it into the next phase. They try and push their laning advantages. They like to do 1-3-1s a little bit too often. Again, it's... These strategies are not going to work in on this stage, in my opinion, because I do think they're outclassed by most... You missed completely.
That's a fly.
You see how I hit it in one try?
Oh, man, you're making fun of me?
I really am.
All right.
That was pathetic. But for the most part, again, they're outclassed in, like, every single lane except for mid
the top side of the map is
again, they're still outclassed though. Like, even the top teams in this tournament have both better mid and top laners.
See, that's the thing though, is that they're better. They're not like the NA players where their best players can contend with better players.
I agree with that.
Though.
They
have the
but the thing about it is
to.
G2's playstyle revolves around getting that
1-3-1 aggression.
It's more so getting that early game lead, and they don't know. Like, again, when they're forced to play from behind, they're a significantly weaker team. They don't know how to stop. Like, when people try and shove their advantage, they don't know how to suffocate them. They don't know how to stop these pushes. I think that's going to be a significant problem with this team because, again, play-wise, they're incredibly good. I think they can compete with any team on pretty much that you could think of. They're not going to get gigantic laning advantages against the Shine rookie. They're not going to get it against Faker and Khan. That's going to be a big problem for them because when they try and push these advantages, they're not going to have the gold lead they usually do. Or if they even have one at all, and if SKT or IG attempts to push on them, this is going to be a big problem because G2 is really that's one of their weakest points. We saw Excel take advantage of them a few times. We've seen a lot of teams.
They lost to SK Gaming.
Yeah, they lose to a lot of teams that to
be fair, the SK one was probably a throw.
I'm sorry they lose to a lot of the lower teams because if they lose that early game lead, their ability to stifle a push from the enemy team is just not existent when they don't have the gold lead. They don't know. Yeah.
I think it boils down to you can expose the new bot lane out of them. Because I feel like if you get a good significant enough bot lane lead, I feel like the better bot lanes, the more established bot laners are going to know how to translate that, even in Double If and Core JJ.
This game is going to be defined by Yankos, I think.
I think Wonder is really good, and I think he can compete with he can compete with Khan and the rest of them.
Khan on a carry is going to destroy him too, honestly.
I feel like the European players that do go to these events are really good.
They are,
and they can compete, just not at the same level, obviously, as the Eastern players, but. I think what G2 is going for them is unpredictability and their immense amount of ability to be flexible. That can really throw some people off in draft. So if they draft what's that thing? What
1-3-1?
The thing with an F. Oh, funnel comp.
Oh, okay.
Funnel comp. If those type of random things that you do in best of ones can get you easy enough wins. I feel like they're a good best of one team. Right? I feel like they're a good best of one team. I feel like in a best of 5, I don't know, because remember, I think this is the same situation they went through back in 2016 when they first won Europe. They weren't challenged, and when you faced the better teams, it looked horrible. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to do because this is the same thing that happened last year. In 2016, This is the same thing that happened in 2017 when they went to MSI. They weren't challenged. They did the exact same thing. It's just obviously it's different players, so you don't really understand. A lot of the things were different back then. This has happened two times in a row by them when they went to MSI. They dominate Europe. No one knows how to beat them. When they face better teams and know what they're exactly doing because they face that on a consistently weekly basis, then that kind of is like, well, if they know what I'm going to do, that's the only thing I'm good at. That's what we're accustomed to. How do you change it on the fly? Because remember, this is what, 4 days of best of ones, right? For the actual best of one round robin, that's like what, 4 days. So if your style doesn't work, you have to either change and adapt that, or you have to keep playing that style until it works out for you. So I don't really know. It's going to be a combination of exposing the weaker bot lane and a combination of either they're not challenged in Europe, Europe's competition's not good enough, or they're just that much better than who they're playing at. So it's going to be based off that. But they are my number 3 team because they're significantly better than Team Liquid. Even all the faults I've listed. But I will say, I'm not going to be surprised if they beat the Eastern teams. They're actually really good players. So.
They're good individual players, I agree with that. Mechanically, they're not.
Caps has not beaten Faker. He didn't beat Rookie. How's he beaten Faker?
Faker wasn't better than Rookie last year, though.
That's a sad thing. He couldn't beat the person that was worse than Faker last year.
No, Faker was worse than him.
Oh, you're right. Oh.
Last year.
Oh, yeah. What else? See, here's the thing, though. What else is G2 generally good at besides snowballing and 1-3-1 aggression?
That is their team comp, and that's what they draft around.
Jankos and Wonder pairing up?
The thing about it is, the way G2 is going to win this is going to be decided solely on Jankos. I think that he's going to be the deciding factor of whether or not G2 gets out of the semifinals.
Could you see G2 in the finals?
I could. I don't think it's impossible. I think that their abilities in terms of just individual play could take advantage of an off day on either one of the top 2 teams.
All right, now we're at the top 2. His is different from mine, so I'll let him
Really?
go first. Really?
Mine's IG. I expected us both to be the same. So I think that
You had SKT at first.
I just said IG for second.
Oh no, yeah, our second teams were different.
That's what I'm kind of confused about.
Now we were in the car driving who's hitting on me, and then
Okay.
I was like,
So I think that IG's strongest thing, again, they have a similar function to G2 of this year, but I think they do it exceptionally better because, first of all, they don't use, even if they can't come back from behind, which I think is another function that they really don't have too much. They have good enough players to the point where it's insanely hard to put them behind because they have some of the best players in the world at their roles. I think that Rookie last year was the single best mid laner in the world, and the Shy was the single best top laner. There was no competition for those two. That's why they kept winning. The jungler, again, I think that Ning likes to push the pace. He's similar to Jankos to an extent. And
loves to play this. He has a wide champion pool.
Not last year. He
Not last
literally
year.
had 3 champions.
He played Xin Zhao, Zach, and Gragas. That's a big champion pool right there.
Yeah, for the most part, I think that I do think that Jankos is competent enough to compete with Ning, but we're gonna have to
be better.
And the weakest part of IG is the big problem because I think they completely do dominate this G2 lineup. I think that's going to be a bit because if you can't expose this bot lane, you probably can't beat this team because that's the one lane you're going to be able to get a lead on.
That's the one lane Chinese teams did attack was their bot lane.
No, so I don't expect this to go really poorly for IG. I think they're competent enough to where I could see them winning this tournament. I don't think it's a significant difference between the top 2 teams. But even though I do think they're pretty decent, they lack. They're substantially worse than last year. I think their mid lane, the play that Rookie's produced has been quite a bit worse than what last year was. Even though a lot of the people accredit it to the fact that Knight has drastically got better this year and Doing Beast got better. I still think...
But he can still play at the level.
No, the thing about it, if Rookie played at the level he did last year, he would still be the best player in the league. And that's just kind of... It's just a little bit sad. I wanted to see a fully...
Oh, that's gross.
Why do you even have that on?
Valkyrie was talking to me.
If you want to see, IG do well, it's going to have to come off the back of Rookie coming back to form. And even then, I still don't know, because, again, no matter how good they are, no matter how good this team's bot lane, this team's mid lane becomes to, they're insanely outclassed in the bot lane. It's not even slightly close. They're outclassed by both players. And it's gonna be detrimental to this team because although I do think they outclass pretty much everybody else in every role but jungle maybe, they are outclassed by SKT in every role but one.
Oh, then my pick was gonna be. So you're gonna ask me why I chose SKT a second because I think people just put SKT in there because of it's just SKT.
Well, I think
I think
that
people haven't really watched the quality of their
their
games.
quality of their games has been significant, and on top of the fact that what role does IG even beat
See, that's the thing.
SKT
It's
in
not really
besides top?
necessarily about beating them in a best of 5.
It is when you're a mindlessly aggressive team that doesn't revolve around macro. You have to be better.
Because there were games in the LPL where they did lose the early game and they came back.
They lost early games to the worst teams again. I think they were able to not close out on them because the difference in mechanics was so large that they were able to come back from it.
Because you have to factor in, I think Bao Long is a very forgotten player on the IG roster itself. I think he's a fairly underrated player.
A lot of people say he's underrated because, again, he went through this thing in the beginning of the offseason where he complained about not being noticed, which was fair enough.
He was tremendous this split.
He was substantially worse than everybody on the roster, and I still think that's the case. I still do think he's the worst player on this team. I think it's a toss-up between him and Jackie Love at this point, not Ning anymore, but for the most part, it's really been like if you're gonna expose this team, it's gonna be coming out of these two.
Because there were certain games in the SKT times we were watching where like the bot lane it's very passive at certain points.
I mean, they don't.
I think that if IG understand how to bring their aggression like they did before out, I think they can punish their bot lane.
The thing about it is the aggressive lanes are every lane but bot lane. Bot lane is not capable of playing aggressive.
They're more like passive aggressive, I'd say.
I mean, Jackie Love is an aggressive player, but he's not mechanically gifted enough to be aggressive on Mata and Teddy. I don't think he is. And
like sometimes SKT's drafts are kind of off. Like they're drafting split push while they're trying to draft scaling. I feel like Khan is still trying to do his own thing while half the team is like thinking of something different. I think it only worked out for them with Griffin because Griffin choked at the very end. Griffin were played out. They were done.
I think G2 again. Griffin was outclassed by the end of the season.
Look at the Kingzone series. They visibly struggled.
That was
3 games in a row.
Kingzone is a significantly strong team. I think you're really underestimating them.
But they still technically almost lost to weaker players.
But they're not weaker players though. I think that again, if we look at Deft is stronger than Teddy this year. We're looking at Tucson. Tucson's not a bad player. I think he's weaker than Mata. I mean,
but is Bao Long better than Tucson?
I mean, it's
probably
maybe.
Not.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty close toss-up, but for the most part, I think we're not giving enough credit to Kingzone at the most part because I do think they're one of the top. They're most definitely a top 10 team in the world.
Like some of their games I've watched, like they'll just fight mindlessly aggressive too without having vision around too. It's like the same things IG struggle with. I see the same things SKT struggle with.
SKT's
mid laner is the biggest deterring factor for them because I think SKT's mid laner Faker. We haven't seen him play really. I think that's like we don't know what he's been preparing for.
I mean,
his champion pool is literally non-existent this year.
It doesn't matter if it's non-existent because we know that he's able to play the other characters. He's been forced onto this secondary role because they want a secondary primary engager behind, Mata and stuff. So that's the whole reason as to why they're having him play Lissandra, which we know he's able to play more than that, so I don't think that's a weak link.
That's a good thing also for a lot of like drafting things. Like you don't know what you can pick.
I mean, that's always going to be the case. Faker can play every champion.
But I think the big difference between SKT and IG right now is the Shy. I feel like the Shy and Ning are comparably can match Khan and Klid.
Klid is substantially better than Ning in my opinion.
I feel like if once Shy starts outclassing Khan in the top lane, he'll just mentally fall off. He won't really know what to do.
I think that Khan on a carry is very comparable in terms of carry potential to the Shy. I do think he can hold his own. I don't think that's going to be a big problem for them because he's not going to fall in a gigantic deficit against the Shy. But I do think the biggest problem. The team fighting is substantially in SKT's favor.
I would say that too.
I would that
IG knows how to come back from behind better than SKT.
I would disagree with that too.
Because SKT's coming back from behind is like more like teams making really bad mistakes.
Well, they force out mistakes. That's why you see these mistakes happen. I think that the biggest reason as to why SKT is the better team at coming back is because they're not usually drafting split push 1-3-1s. On top of the fact that they substantially know how to control the waves better in the side lane, so when they shove out the bot lane, they can rotate mid, and then instead of being able to attack the mid lane turret, they're forced to, when the enemy team with the lead they're not able to attack that mid lane turret because they have to respond to the bot lane because it's shoving. They do have really good wave control.
I feel like if IG's bot lane can hold their own against Teddy and Mata and play that passive style that Teddy and Mata like to play, I feel like they can outmatch them when it comes to like obviously diving and rotations. It just depends. Honestly,
their complete their rotations are not their strength. I think they only know how to.
This is standard lane, win lane.
They win lane. They try and rotate after they get that substantial lead, or they try and keep shoving a rotate into 1-3-1.
This is weird because IG beat their finals 3-0. SKT wins 3-0. They're realistically not challenging their finals. I mean, IG kind of was challenging their last game, but realistically, JDG threw pretty hard.
JDG is really not that good either. Is the worst part. I don't think they're good enough to be in the finals.
But still, they
made it. I mean, again, Zoom was the biggest reason. I think Zoom was underappreciated in the RNG series, so he was the only reason they pulled it off is because he was ignored on Kale.
I think Yagao completely started.
Yagao was just not a world class mid laner. That's the biggest thing about it.
See, and that's the thing though. Like IG and SKT weren't really necessarily challenged at a certain point. It was just them completely being better.
Yeah, I agree.
IG was a little bit more challenged by Top. I feel like Top series should have been the finals.
Top series again, they're a better team. I think that the two best. I still do think that Fun plus Phoenix is a little bit better than they showed. But
actually, yeah.
I do think again. I've ragged on them pretty much all year this year, but I do think they're substantially better than they showed in that series, and I do think they're better than JDG.
So it pretty much depends on which team is going to get an early game lead. That depends.
I don't know about that because SKT again is not insanely fast paced, though they do know how to play the fast paced game. They still do try and draft towards that later end type of the game kind of stuff.
Because this is the same thing we had last year with KT Rolster. It's the reason why people picked KT to beat IG was that they're the more finesse team. They're the more veteran team. They're gonna know what to do. But even players like that, when they're beaten, they're gonna still have the better team
again,
push the lead and win.
We saw the veteranness out of Rookie completely outclassed UCal. I think that was the biggest difference. Is because the difference in mid was just a little too substantial when it came to the world stage.
The difference in top was showing too.
I wasn't really. I think Smeb held his own in a few of the games, but I do think that Chai was obviously the better player at this point.
It just depends on these players are in fact so good. Like just the little minute differences are going to make them better. But better drafting. I mean, IG draft fairly standard. Ning is the only person that's like randomly switch it up. If you give Silas the Shy, the Shy Silas, I don't even know why you are allowed to win games at that point. But it just depends though. IG draft fairly standard. SKT draft more like for scaling or early game aggression. So if you do fail in the early game, then they can come back from a deficit. It just depends though. I think SKT can come back from a deficit better than IG. But I feel like IG knows how to come back from a deficit better and more efficiently now than what they did before because they were actually challenged this year in the LPL a lot harder than they were last year.
The reason that they were challenged a little more again is because they became a significantly weaker team. Their mid lane is substantially worse. I think their jungle is slightly improved and their bot, and so is the support, but I do think also Jackie is on a decline a little bit.
It's like the Shy just went above everybody. The Shy actually went up and the whole team is just coming down.
The Shy is playing as good as he did in Spring Split. I just think that he's forced into a bigger role because he has less carries on his team.
I feel like Jackie Love can be that carry though.
Jackie Love is a carry.
He team fights incredibly well too.
Well, he's mechanically incredible, but the problem is that he makes a lot of stupid mistakes, and that's always been his problem. I think he makes and on top of the fact, I think he's a little bit substantial. Like he's not as mechanically gifted as he was last year. Was a big thing as to why I think that it's not going to work out as well.
Is this going to be the year of IG?
I don't think so at all.
Man, but is this going to be the year where Faker reclaims his throne?
I mean, I don't know. You're asking me. You already know my answer.
Every MSI after 2015, SKT has won everyone they attended to. So, I'm pretty sure it's going to be an IG SKT finals. I just don't see. I mean, if G2 matches up against IG in the semifinals, I wouldn't be surprised if G2 beats them.
I would be substantially surprised, honestly.
Okay, if it's anything but bot lane beating IG, I would be surprised.
I mean, again, I'm going to be surprised if it does happen. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but it's definitely a surprise if it does happen because they are the underdogs. It's not. It's just the case.
And then you have so he's predicting he has SKT at first. I just have IG at first.
I honestly think that SKT is probably going to 3-0 the finals. Is my guess.
I feel like the Shy is going to clap SKT so hard they're not. He's
going
to want to go back to Korea to congratulate them on his victory. So you have the former world champions versus the new world champions. You have. I'm just going to put this out there. Rookie is not as good as Faker. I don't know where people get that from.
He was better than Faker last year. I think that was the case, and I do.
A lot of people were better than Faker last year. Maybe Caps was better than Faker last year.
I don't think that. I don't think he was that bad. I don't think he was incredibly bad. I just think he had an off year, and that was.
BDD was better than Faker last year. That's
BDD was incredible though for a little bit. I mean, for the most part, I think that What were we just talking about?
Oh, the Shy just beating down on SPT.
Past that, you said something, and I was gonna comment on
The
it.
former world champ. Oh, Rookie being better than Faker.
You know what? No, it was right before that. I said something.
Oh God, he's just minutely taking on my words.
Don't ever do that again. Use words that you don't fully understand.
Use words.
All right, so I don't remember what I was gonna say.
Have you ever onomatopoeia'd?
Okay, so I got a new camera. If you guys think it's pretty, let me know in the comments.
You guys can donate to our Patreon and PayPal.
We don't have one.
I said we don't make money off this channel because we're money hungry grubs.
Okay, so
this is the Kings tournament. I want everybody to know that it's the first place team there. There's no second or third place teams dragging you down. They're over TL. There's no Cloud9 to save you this time around to get you guys out of groups. There's no Cloud9 to save in North America, so it's all TL. I hope TL, realistically, hopefully the certain teams that are losing can see if their play style just isn't working, they need to try and switch it up.
I can't deny I would be really excited if TL did well.
If TL got second place, I would probably just be so happy.
I would be okay with that. But that's pretty much it.
Oh yeah, I can't wait until NA stomps EU so hard.
That's okay. Probably not.